Hey, it's Clint Marsden here, and today I wanted to demonstrate something that I've been working on, which is a bot in Telegram that gives the ability for cybersecurity leaders and executives and anyone else really who wants to practice their incident response skills in an interactive way by using a chatbot. And I've built this bot using a tool called BotPress, and this essentially allows you to have an interface with Telegram and use AI and RAG, or retrieval augmented generation, to extract answers from a database. And then it also comes up with its own and can be quite sassy if you try and give it some attitude, and it brings you back on track to a real crisis management or a real incident response tabletop scenario when people try to derail the scenario intentionally or unintentionally based on their personality or whatever that may be. And this all started because previously I've designed and orchestrated a high-stakes cybersecurity scenario that tested the organizational resilience of an institution, an educational institution, and it tested those scenarios under extreme pressure. And in one of these exercises, I created this complex and multi-layered cyber attack simulation. And the idea is that it would push the incident response team and the executive team to the breaking point to understand the limitations of the team and the processes that were in place, and then figure out how to improve and get some lessons learned and work on that for next time. And the scenario began with what appeared to be a straightforward but still serious breach. And it was that hackers had compromised the card access system. So the building access system where you use swipe cards to enter buildings. And in doing that, they had taken over the control of building entry. And what that meant was it was a massive nightmare for anyone trying to get access to buildings, and that was including students. Now, just as a reminder, this is a fictional scenario that I created to test what could happen in the real world. And the idea here is that students were able to access buildings, executives were unable to access their buildings. Of course, lifts in certain parts of the institution were inaccessible. And this was a complete nightmare. And the ICT team then found themselves in crisis mode, and they are getting hit left, right, and center with angry calls from every department, especially the executive teams. And they are trying to regain control of this critical infrastructure. And at the same time, the security team was trying to understand what is occurring, who has gotten in, what are they doing, how can we boot them out. But just as the ICT team was fully consumed with this very high profile and very high visibility breach, there was an inject. And if you're familiar with tabletop scenarios, an inject is a bit of a curveball which adds some additional stress to the scenario in the way of there is now an additional problem. So imagine you're at home and your water pipe bursts under the sink in the kitchen, and then the inject is that someone crashes through your front fence and has then ruptured a gas line, for example. It takes you away from that original problem, and you are left deciding what is worse, what needs to happen. Do I call 000 and get them to fix the gas line, or do I keep trying to solve this problem? So that inject was designed to draw the attention away from the incident responders and from the team. And what it turns out in the scenario is that while the building access system was being attacked and havoc was being caused, a secondary attack was also occurring. And this was to infiltrate and identify and then steal highly sensitive, personally identifiable information, or PII, from a key system in the institution. And the idea was that would cause a massive issue. And what do we do to deal with that? So that is the inspiration for the bot here. And the idea here is that while that took a lot of time and planning to build that out, to build that scenario out, and then to get everyone into a room was even more difficult, to then facilitate a scenario, and there were several reschedules of this event occurring. What if it's possible at any time, maybe when an executive is up late at night worrying what they're going to do about the latest cyber threats because they've just read something in IT news, or the latest ransomware attack, what if they could just talk to a bot and get some peace of mind and kind of practice their responses and practice some questions that they might like to ask? This is what the bot does. So this is in Telegram, recording this on my PC, and we want to start. So we might just say g'day. And something new that's been happening is it gives me a little emoji and shows that it's read it or it loves the questions. It's just a bit nicer, a little bit more interactive. All right, it's responded. Great. You're in the right place to test your incident response capabilities. Let's begin with a simulated data breach scenario. Are you ready to dive into the identification phase? And the reason why it's asking that is because in the background, the way that I've built this is I've aligned it to the NIST Incident Response Handling Guide, or SP 800-61. And that is a common focus of a lot of boards and a lot of leadership teams and ICT teams where they want to align themselves with an incident response handling framework. And I do NIST, and I think it's quite useful. And while it doesn't cover everything, and there are scenarios in the real world which are not covered by it, it's a great place to start, and then you can augment that from there. So let's get going. So throughout this whole interaction, using natural language is the best way to do it. It will prompt you and it guides you along the whole thing. So now we're getting into the exact scenario itself, and it gives us an idea of what could happen. 2:13 a.m. Yep, not a great time for an incident to occur. And the SOC analyst notices unusual outbound traffic from a critical server. What's my first step in responding to this situation? Now, I may not be perfect in this, but let's have a go. Let's see what happens. So, let me just reread this. It's 2:13 a.m. The SOC analyst notices unusual outbound traffic from a critical server. My first question is, what kind of traffic is it? Okay, so it needs a bit more clarity. Fair. Okay, what kind of traffic? Yes. It's hard for me not to use slang or the way that I would normally speak during an incident. Okay, and this brings us to something else that I wanted to highlight. And in the creation of the bot, I wanted to cover both bases. I wanted it to be a technical response trainer so that you can understand how to perform the actions, as well as if you're not technical and you are more in a leadership role, If you want to keep it high level, you can do that as well. Me being technical, I'd like to keep it technical, but we'll try and integrate some of the less technical steps as well to keep it high level and demonstrate the power of what can be done here. So I'm just rereading this to confirm. So it's giving us a little bit of instruction here, just saying, look, you should be looking at the logs. And this is in the same way that in a real tabletop exercise, there would be a facilitator, and they would, if you put your hand up and said, hey, we're not sure, we've had a discussion amongst our team, we don't know the best way to proceed. They might provide guidance like this, giving you some suggestions on what to do next. It's not about being perfect in these exercises. The idea is to understand how you work together and also to get you thinking about the different areas of the network and systems, and also where there might be gaps. So this is a great way to do it. So if we continue on with the scenario, so saying it could be FTP, HTTPS, so, could be Dropbox or another file sharing platform, mega.co.nz or something like that. Would you like guidance on how to analyze these logs? Yeah, why not? Let's put it to the test. Let's see how much knowledge it's got and what it can help us with. Okay, so if we're lucky enough to have a seam, and it's giving us some good context here. Analyzing the logs, looking for repeated failed login attempts, real basic stuff at the moment. Unusual user activity or unexpected data transfers. Look for IOCs such as known malicious IPs or domains. Correlate with threat intelligence. Yeah, okay. So some of the suggestions that it's providing here are probably angled at an organization who is quite mature and has engaged in significant cyber investment over a period of years. This is not something that you would just build in 12 months. This is capability that grows upon itself and would involve large project teams, large cyber teams, large ICT teams, excellent leadership from a CISO who can guide the organization in the best way to proceed and what type of investment needs to be made. And this does take years, and I've witnessed it on multiple occasions. Solid leadership means that you can get the right investment and move forward. But let's keep going, because this is not about IT strategy. This is about using a bot. Would you like help with any specific step, or do you need assistance in identifying tools or commands to use for this process? No? Let's proceed. So it's not perfect, but we've had enough of hearing about tools and protocols and what needs to be investigated. Let's see. This is something that I might need to update just to keep it moving forward. So this is good, and it's giving us a few more breadcrumbs here. All right, 500 meg of data transferred at 2:30 in the morning over FTP. Could go either way. Could be part of maybe the accounting system, and that every night it does the reconciliation and sends it off to the bank. Or it could be a data exfil. So which of these actions do you want to prioritize, or do you want to proceed with all of them? Look, I think proceeding with all of them is a little bit risky when we're dealing with an incident. You want to keep things in a linear flow and just do one thing at a time. So I will use some poetic license here and give it some more context about what I think it could be. And I'm going to go for that we've actually had a data exfiltration attack, and then we'll see how it goes from there. So I'm just going to say, I've investigated, I've discovered the database, I've discovered that the data is originating from the manufacturing and engineering network that deals with defense contracts, which is a little bit scary. We'd hope that it would be locked down a little bit better than this. Okay, so we've identified, it's just repeating what we've said. It's a critical discovery as it involves sensitive and potentially classified information. Perfect. That's the exact intention that I was hoping it would pick up on, that nuance, which is good because this is that AI, it's using some reasoning. Your next steps should include containment. Okay. So this is an interesting point. It could go either way. There's multiple schools of thought on this, and you may not want to contain straight away, depending on the risk appetite. Because this contains defense information and it's from a defense network, I think on reflection that containing those systems, containing that network is probably a great idea. So would you like to proceed with containment? We'll just say we have since contained the system affected. So now I'm going to play the part of, I'm not going to guide it, and I'm just going to see how far down the rabbit hole it wants to go. Okay, so it's moving fairly quickly now to talk about what the next steps are. So it's moving through the rest of the incident handling guide: eradication, recovery, analysis, lessons learned. Let's go with eradication. Fantastic. So it's really giving us this juicy information and a very good how-to and very good distilled guide on what we need to do. Let's proceed with recovery. What I want to say is that by using a tool like this, it is fantastic if you already have experience. If this is your first rodeo, this might be might have a little bit too much assumed knowledge. And if you don't have a cyber team, then some of this might not be as relevant for you right now. I would say it's a great learning tool, and this certainly distills a lot of the knowledge from the, 100, 150 odd page 800-61 paper, but it gets you going, gets you thinking, and gives you somewhere to start, and at least you can practice. Okay, so here we go. Once recovery is complete, we can proceed to the lessons learned phase. And we'll just say we're ready to move forward. You could drag this out for as long as you like. Let's move into lessons learned. Okay. I'm going to throw out a curveball here. And we'll pretend that the organization that we're with doesn't have a great culture, and maybe they're pointing fingers at each other. Let's see what it says. I'm in the debrief. And everyone is pointing fingers and no one is taking responsibility. Not a good situation that you want to be in. What do I do? And I'll just say, I'm the CISO. My heart rate just went up. Okay. Because I'm not a CISO. Okay. As the CISO, it's important to steer the debrief meeting towards constructive outcomes. Here's how you can address the situation. All right, this looks good. Set the tone. Focus on facts. Excellent. Encourage accountability. Identify gaps. Document and plan. Look, I love this, and I'm going to wrap this up pretty soon because we don't want it to go on forever. But you can start to get a good understanding of the power of this and what is possible. What kind of notes? What we'll say is what kind of notes should be, capitals, we're not shouting, should be taken, and what kind of questions asking. So the way that this is working in the back end, this is using BotPress to facilitate the bot, and then it's connected to OpenAPI. So it's connected to OpenAI using the API, and that means that we're using API tokens. So each message is using tokens, each character is a token, and that is costing a few cents. This is not a very expensive model to run. Fantastic. Okay, so this is a great example. And then we'll just say, look, let's wrap it up. So this is great. We'll pretend it's been going for 2.5 hours. We've learned a lot. Everyone's had a great time. Certainly learned some limitations of the team, learned some limitations in our processes, and now we want to turn it off. These questions are excellent to ask. And it's really important to have this after-action debrief to understand how you can improve for next time. So go through these questions as well, and then build the next scenario based on that. What you could do is you could take the instructions, the prompt instructions. This is everything that's sitting in the back end of BotPress. You could take all of those, roll in the answers to these questions, and give it some more context that will become more bespoke to the organization. And then the next tabletop scenario that you run, or the next simulation that you run, if you're running this yourself, will be a lot easier. What could be an idea is imagine having this as a bit of a co-pilot if it's maybe your first time running a simulation, running a tabletop exercise, and you can feed in the responses from the team and see how it responds. We might click on the microphone angle and, with everyone's consent, just have them speak directly to the AI. Have them speak to the bot directly, see how it responds. That's something that I haven't tested yet, but could be an idea. I hope this has been informative, and I hope this has shared some cool use cases of what's possible with AI chatbots. And I hope that you enjoyed seeing my demonstration of my IR tabletop chatbot that I've built. If you've got any questions, feel free to reach out. You can get me on LinkedIn if you're watching this on YouTube, or if you're watching this on LinkedIn, please feel free to DM. I'm Clint Marsden, and this was my chatbot. Thanks.